It's like the ball has been dropped and no one's actually picked it up in terms of what's going on right now. Like, we'll see things going on, but then it's like, okay, what you got to say about that? No one's saying anything. So my thing is, because there's a small minority of people, it needs to be more people talking about exactly who's doing what, who's controlling the planet's money, the currency, and where's all these diseases coming from. Because we can sit here and talk about our history all day, but if you are not manifesting the God principle within self, all that doesn't mean a hell of beans. You understand? So, part of it also is to give honor and praise. So I'll start off by giving honor and praise to my father, blood father, Dr. York. People will mostly remember him in terms of his works through, let's say, the Holy Tablets. And, because every time I turn around, people ask, "You got a Holy Tablet? You got a Holy Tablet?" I'm like, "No, I'll give you mine." And then they'll ask about Leviathan 666, year 2000, what to expect. But the main book that they don't ask about, that I picked back up very recently, was the Luciferian Conspiracy. Because like Steve Coakley, he always said my most favorite quote from him was "name names." Because anybody can just say Jews. And it's like, which Jew you talking about? What? Jerry Seinfeld? What? Gary Shandling? What? George Steinbrenner? You're just saying Jew. Which Jew specifically did what? Because a lot of us, it's funny, we have a very interesting relationship with Jews. Some of us prefer living around Jews because we feel like we have the most in common with Jews. We had our own African Holocaust. They had their Holocaust. We have religious practices. They have religious practices that's very different to most crackers in the society. But then we'll turn around and then we'll find out something about them, and then it's like, oh, wow, I didn't know they did that. But yeah, they did do that. They did do that. So the book, The Luciferian Conspiracy, which is actually out of print at this point, is naming names. It's going into the Trilateral Commission. It's going into who is Adam Weishaupt, who is the Rothschilds, who is David Rockefeller, who is actually controlling the money's currency, who is really the civil rights movement, who is funding the civil rights movement. You know what I'm saying? We see these movements, and the next thing you know, it's like we think that they're all for black people. You gotta understand, there were black people controlling black people for white people's power. And then we automatically just think, as soon as we see a black politician, we get the savior complex opens back up in our brains. Instead of just realizing that these people have the worst interests ever when dealing with us. So you have to understand as well is that when you name names, you are making yourself a target. But the reality is this: what exactly are you doing when you name names? It's about truth. Because again, you can be very ambiguous. You can be ambiguous and just say, again, I can just say, white people. Right. And I'm like, okay, white man is the devil. I'm not going to change that at all for nobody. You know who you are by your nature. Blacks can't turn around and have a white cracker holocaust and start rounding up crackers and putting them on a boat and putting them to work. You had an instance within the Moorish situation, but that was an Islamic movement. When we didn't have religion to rely on, to control us mentally, we dealt with African spirituality because we were God, period. We didn't have anything controlling us. We had no reason to do that. So when you name the names, it's about dealing with ma'at. What is ma'at? Truth, justice, reciprocity, and order. So when you name names, you're dealing with all these principles because I got to point you out specifically. Because our people are being oppressed every single day by people that we think are helping us every single day. These people are competing for who will oppress us next. Next slide. Steve Coakley from 1952 to 2012. He right now is one of my favorite lecturers to look at. Because as I said, he named names. And it's funny because when I look at him, it's all I can just do is just say, wow. Wow. It's like I was talking to my mate earlier, and I was like, watch him. I mean, he was all over the place. He really just had it in his hand. I mean, you heard him, but he didn't deal with mics. He would just have all the paperwork in front of you. Okay, brother, you found the paper. I found the paper. So it's like a book, and it's like a book of just information on the floor. And he would have overalls on. An overall be falling down. He strap it back up, and he get back to saying what he's saying. But it was the fact that he was in the political arena in Chicago, getting pushed out of that, and realizing who the enemy really was, and realizing our greatest enemy, the white man, the devil, was controlling other blacks, that was controlling our fate to make sure that we stayed at a certain level in terms of liberation. So when we deal with people who literally died, because in my heart of hearts, he did not kill himself. Of course, our brother King Solomon said, everybody had situations when you're finding out certain things that is like the absolute truth. It will tend to make you go crazy. So sometimes people need depressants, antidepressants. So he'll spend time in whatever arena he did. It's no disrespect, but that was reality. But it's, in my heart of hearts, that man was killed. Yeah. You understand? And so we got to stop listening to what the devil says about our people. Because it's like, with us, black people will only believe something if you say, white people say it. I have to give you a white source. Other than that, it didn't exist. That's reality.
Respect to you by the side.
No problem, respect. Unless the white man said it, we will not believe it. This was a black man coming with all this information, because you can, prior to Steve Coakley, you had the David Icke that was, you see all this stuff on YouTube, and I still get black people coming to me about David Icke this, David Icke that. You see what he said about it? I said, yeah, that's cool, but we got Coakley. You know what I'm saying? We got Griff. I got my father right there. I don't need Icke. I mean, I can use him for a point of reference. I don't need Icke. It's like a black man coming to me, giving me, what's that white Egyptologist people want to use all the time?
What?
Yeah, and then you got Gerald Massey. White man, black man come to me about Gerald Massey. I'm like, we got Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, my father, Dr. York. We got all these black African lectures about Kim, and you give me Gerald Massey? You love white people, don't you? Yeah, okay. But the main thing about Coakley was that his lectures were very extensive and very thought. He was a master, not just a master teacher, but a master researcher. You want where found, he gave you the paperwork. He had people working for him that would just go in different rooms and buildings and take them. Because the thing is, he cared about our liberation. He cared about us actually getting the truth. It wasn't about, well, let me just write this book and so I can make this money. Because you can I can write a bunch of books and did not name nothing, because in our minds we see black people as very gullible and ignorant. But if you care and see our people as gods, to know that all we got to do is be taught what to do and we'll do it, that's all we have to do. So that's all it came down to. So we give honor to those who stood for truth in the truest form. Next slide. And I want to give reference to Griff, because I started watching and listening to Griff around 2012. He was on Tariq Nasheed's, one of his podcasts. He was just dropping it. I mean, he was just so serious. I mean, it was like, you felt like he was just jabbing you in your chest. Just jabbing. It was just so much information at one time. And the fact that he during the time when the book, The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews came out, he was being persecuted by the Jews, hip-hop industry, other rappers, asking him, why are you putting this information out? What is the point? What are you trying to prove? What are you doing this for? And then what happened? Next thing you know, he gets put out the group. You get put out of the group for putting the truth out. So what was the point of the group? What was the point of Public Enemy if I get put out by the leader of the group for putting out the information? What was the point of the group? Doesn't make any sense. So the fact that, you know, he sacrificed money because after he's being put out, he's going back to just lecturing and researching. You know, there's multiple pieces of grift where it's like books and stacks of information that he compiled on who's controlling the industry and what kind of frequency that they want our people resonating on. And just looking at the fact that anything that he's saying is like so much truth that it stimulates the people that's listening to this. It's stimulating. This is not a game. And so that's what it came down to. So when I saw, the fact there's like 3 people that I can remember in terms of our people talking about this. There's people stints here, stints there. Because a lot of people will pick this information because it draws attention. But then they won't stay and continue to do research because then it will make you paranoid. Because you're naming names. Again, name the names. Don't just say a word and we don't know who to look for. You understand? Because again, anybody can name a name. Exactly who are you looking for? Exactly who did what? And when we don't know exactly who did what, what's the point? We're just wasting time. Next slide. And I pushed in this Ashkenazi Jew, the Khazars, because I wanted to make a distinction because again, when you say the word Jew, that encompasses a lot of things. It encompasses a religion. It encompasses reality, a group of people who called themselves Jews. So I wanted people to get that information out so that, again, since New York is bought and sold by Jews, you have a group that basically was converted by people of Babylon that came into Europe when they was between the Caspian and the Black Sea. Does anyone know what the name of that area was called at one point? Anyone remember? Anyone know? It was known as the Caucasoid Mountain. So it was whites or Gracchus who lived between the Caspian and the Black Sea. At one point also in Arabic called El Brux, that blacks knew not even to go into because the savages at that time lived in that area. They literally at one point had to build a wall. And I talked about this on my conference call this past Wednesday. They had to build a wall around the Caucasoid Mountains, the Africans, during the time of Kemet, to keep these crackers inside. 6,000 years ago. They knew that in their mind they were animals. So they wanted to keep the animals inside of where they were. This wall was at least 30 feet wide. Make sure the people they were already animals to begin with. So they wanted to keep them inside. And this is from earlier writings from the Nation of Islam as well as Asaru law as well. This is documented evidence of this. Next slide.
Can I say one? We built a wall to keep
them in.
Keep them away from us.
Keep them away from us, from our people. Because it's like they're animals. They don't have their nature is animalistic. We knew the thing is we dealt with things as Africans based on nature, not based on morals or maybe some of them are good, maybe some of them are bad. At one point they're going to accept us. No, we didn't deal with acceptance or integration. I mean, we integrated at one point in Kemet when the new kingdom came in. But we dealt with them from a nature standpoint, not with hopefully they're going to treat us good one day. You know how we are now. And the Sephardim, known as the Sephardic Orientals, they make up 10% of the Jews because the Ashkenazis make up 80%. So you're dealing with mostly Europeans. But these are still Europeans that end up once they were pushed out. Once the Ashkenazims and the Sephardims were pushed out of Europe, these had to migrate into Spain and into parts of North Africa and into parts of Turkey. So they was a small amount, and some of them ended up becoming a little less blonde-haired, blue-eyed, so they started mixing in with a little portion of the North Africans, okay? And A cracker that you know as Christopher Columbus was a Sephardic Jew. All right? And he spoke Spanish, but he was known as a Sephardic Jew. The Sephardic Jews, period, made up most of the slave trade. And they benefited more than anybody else in the slave trade. This is by documented evidence from white cracker rabbis, you know, Khazaric rabbis, proselytes. And what they'll do is, when you look up in the history books that they have created, because they are those that are over revision over what we learn, they'll give you who? They'll give you the Spaniards, they'll give you the British, they'll give you the Italians, right? They'll give you the Portuguese. The main name they'll throw out is the Portuguese tribe, right? But what a lot of people don't know is that, next slide. What a lot of this gives so much documented evidence as of what the Jews, specifically Ashkenazim and also Sephardic Jews, were doing to our people. When they would come in, and they weren't even like trading with those of Ghana and those of Senegal and those of Tanzania. They would just kidnap Africans. They would just come in with boats and just kidnap Africans. This is documented. And when the Nation of Islam put this information out, they wanted people to know who was doing the most. Because we have so much trust and so much of a connection to Jews. We work for Jews every single day. Even in the entertainment industry, the Jews are our God. You know what I'm saying? In the rap world, rather than go independent, you want to get Jewish acceptance. To this day, rather than go independent, you would rather go to Sony, where they manufacture most of the buck dances that we have in our industry. Because if you want to say what you really want to say about the cracker, you have to go independent. So our people know that in order for us to get seen the most, I'm going to have to go to this Jew. I'm going to have to go and get a slave master. So when you look up, and you know, I always recommend this book because it's just astonishing with the amount of money that they made from America, South America, Brazil, going into Jamaica. They had slave companies. Jews had slave companies that was in Brazil, that they were making millions of dollars. This is before any reparations that they received. You understand? So they were over the Dutch when they were going into South America and Brazil specifically. They were the ones that were dominating the slave trade. The Europeans say this. They dominated so much that they had to basically be put out of Europe over a period of time because they made so much money. And there was no trade. This was just kidnaps of Africans repeatedly, coming in with more weapons than we could even defend ourselves with, and just taking us and putting us in servitude. Next slide. That's why I went into Christopher Columbus. Period. Because again, I make sure that I wrote enough information that in case you wanted to summarize the notes, that you can go back, research this information, and you find out how much of a devil he really was. And again, every single day, or every single year, our people are being forced to celebrate the holiday of a beast man that came in and took our people to make money off of. And not just, going into our people, Native Americans that were also already here, some that was in South America, and put them to work in Europe. You understand? So we are taught to worship the devil every single day, every single year in our school systems. And so we look at, and we'll turn around and say, well, why not just have an indigenous day for our people on that same day? But then the reality is you have to get the permission of your oppressor to change anything. Think about that. That you say, well, I'm not a slave, but you go to his schools. Even when we go to black schools, that's in what we call the ghetto, all of the curriculum is still white supremacy, right? Where's the money coming from? White people. White people funding it, so therefore they can dictate what they revise, what they teach. They can continue to tell you how great Dr. King was. He had a dream, and that was it. We shot him, but we feel sorry, so we gave you a holiday. Deal with it. You understand? That's what they do. So we turn around, and everything is forgiven because they allow you to go to Woolworth. They allow you to, to sit-ins. Black folks love getting their behind with, don't we? We learned through slavery, right, to just get, to just take the beatings well. Just, man, black folks it's like whites be like, wow, those blacks just love getting beaten. I mean, they're always up with signs and they come with the pickets and they're yelling and screaming. It's like, wow, y'all are just like repeats of the 60s. They know what we're gonna do. So they know how to kill us. If you can predict your enemy's movements, you're already won. You understand? So in our school systems, they already can predict our education of our people and our children at least 10 to 20 or 30 years. That's why, again, you have to create African-centered schools. And I do solutions in between slides. You have to at least support African-centered schools that, number one, though, does not receive any government grants from anybody. That means that you have to be able to be the ones to support and fund your own movements. Even in black organizations. Why would you bring your oppressor in your own organization? Does that make sense? I can understand that you have a business and whoever comes in, they buy whatever they want, but you have an African-centered movement with white people in it. What is that? I mean, just make it make sense. Make it make sense. This person in slavery made you work all day, all night, starved you out, beat you, raped your women, castrated your men. You go to the 60s, we're gonna take it. That's who we are. We take it better than anybody else. Go to the same thing, right? Tell me if I'm wrong. You start a movement to fight against them, but you let them back in them. You let them in the movement. They're letting you know who they are. Columbus let our indigenous people know who they are, because there's documented evidence of him going to who? Going to what we call Trinidad today, right? Trinidad, where there was African people that were already there. Our master teacher, Dr. Suleiman, talked about this, and when he went there with a couple of people, they got their butt whooped and nearly died. Right? Then he goes back and asks for reinforcements, which is the what? The Nina, the Pizza, and the Santa Maria. Right? So he comes in with reinforcements to almost exterminate the whole African people that were already in the islands and then subsequently enslave them. Whereas in the school system, well, we took you over there and then we put you to work involuntarily. Right? Because, right now they're teaching, they're trying to find a way to eliminate the word slave out of the curriculum. So then your children coming up, if you still have children in the school system, can now see it as a voluntary, or either voluntary, because they'll say, well, your people sold you, so you kind of voluntarily put yourself in. Or involuntary, because, well, you were primitive at that point. So you deserved it. So you should thank us for putting you in the position that we put you in. Because if it wasn't for us, you would still be ignorant. You'd still be in those forests, having babies without any control. This is what they think. The thing is, what we learn is we learn what they give us, what they allow us after they filter the information. Right? When we learn Kemet, we learn it from people who have got it from a filtered standpoint. That's what Egyptology is. It's a filtered amount of information. Because if they went past 6,000 years, they wouldn't be around. The only amount of evidence that they have of themselves of a